experiences, friends that I grew up with in South Philly, walking the way we walked in South Philly when you think you're bad.
He was one of the most beloved faces on television, known for his sharp humor and unforgettable role on the Jeffersons. But behind the scenes of fame and success, things weren't always as smooth as they seemed for Sherman Hemsley. Reports and stories from the set suggest there was tension with one particular co-star that never really made it to the screen. While the cameras captured laughter and chemistry, what happened off-camera tells a very different story, one that fans rarely hear about. So what really went on between them? And why did things get so complicated? Join us as we uncover the untold tension behind one of TV's most iconic sitcoms. A troubled start. Sherman Hemsley didn't grow up with comfort or stability. He was raised in a tough neighborhood in Philadelphia, where life could change quickly and not always for the better. The streets around him were filled with crime, violence, and constant tension. For many kids in that environment, staying out of trouble was not easy. It was something you had to fight for every single day. As a teenager, Sherman got pulled into that world. He started spending time with a group known as the 20th Street Gang. At first, it may have felt like a way to belong or stay protected, but it also brought him closer to danger. Trouble was always nearby, and the choices people made often had serious consequences. It wasn't long before Sherman began to see the reality of that life. Many of the people he grew up with didn't get a second chance. Some were arrested and ended up in jail, while others lost their lives far too early. Seeing this happen again and again had a deep impact on him. These weren't strangers. These were people he knew, people he spent time with. Watching their lives fall apart forced Sherman to think about his own future in a serious way. At some point, he made an important decision. He realized that if he stayed on the same path, he could end up just like them. That thought pushed him to want something different. He didn't want to be another story of wasted potential. He wanted a way out, even if he didn't fully know how to get there yet. One small but meaningful part of his life gave him a different perspective. When he was still in elementary school, Sherman had his first experience with acting. It wasn't anything big at the time, just a simple moment in class. But it stuck with him. Being on stage, even in a small way, made him feel something different. It gave him a sense of direction, even if he didn't realize it fully back then. That early experience stayed in the back of his mind as he grew older. While the streets were pulling him one way, there was a quiet interest in something better pulling him another way. He just needed the right moment to follow it. And soon, he would make a bold move that changed everything. Breaking away. Leaving behind the life he knew was not easy for Sherman Hemsley, but he understood that staying in the same environment would only lead to more trouble. By the time he reached the 10th grade, he made a serious decision that would shape his future. He dropped out of high school. For many people, that might seem like a step backward, but for Sherman, it was part of a bigger plan to get away from the streets and start fresh. His main goal was simple: escape the cycle he had seen destroy so many lives around him. He didn't want to end up in jail or worse. He wanted structure, direction, and a chance to build something better. That desire led him to enlist in the United States Air Force. Joining the military gave him exactly what he had been missing: discipline and order. During his 4 years in the Air Force, Sherman experienced a completely different kind of life. There were rules to follow, responsibilities to handle, and expectations to meet every day. He learned how to stay focused, manage his time, and take accountability for his actions. These lessons were not always easy, but they helped him grow into a more responsible and determined person. The military also gave him a sense of stability. For the first time, his life had a clear structure. He knew what he had to do each day, and that brought a level of control he had never really had before. It kept him away from the chaos of his old neighborhood and gave him space to think about his future. But even with all the benefits, something inside him didn't feel complete. Deep down, Sherman still had a passion that the military could not fulfill. He couldn't ignore the interest in acting that had been with him since he was young. While he appreciated what the Air Force was giving him, he knew it wasn't where he truly belonged. This created an internal struggle. On one side, there was the safety and stability of military life. On the other, there was the uncertain path of chasing a dream in acting. Choosing between the two was not easy, but Sherman was honest with himself. He realized that if he stayed in the military, he might always wonder what could have been. By the time his service ended, his decision was clear. He was grateful for the experience, but he knew it was time to move on and follow his passion. And once he made that choice, he took his first real step toward becoming an actor. Betting on himself. After leaving the military, Sherman Hemsley made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He chose to take acting seriously. This was not just a dream anymore, it was something he wanted to build a future around. To do that, he knew he needed proper training, so he enrolled at the Philadelphia Academy of Dramatic Arts. Joining acting school was a big step. It showed that Sherman was ready to invest time and effort into improving his skills. He was no longer just someone with interest in acting. He was now a student learning the craft. At the academy, he studied different techniques, practiced performances, and began to understand what it really takes to succeed in the entertainment world. It wasn't easy, but he was committed. At the same time, reality didn't slow down for him. He still needed money to support himself. Acting school came with expenses, and everyday life still had bills to pay. To manage this, Sherman took a job at the post office. It wasn't a glamorous job, and it had nothing to do with acting, but it gave him a steady income. That job became an important part of his journey. Balancing both worlds was not simple. During the day, he worked long hours handling mail and doing routine tasks. Then, outside of work, he focused on acting, attending classes, practicing, and looking for opportunities. It required discipline and patience. There were no shortcuts, and progress was slow at times. But Sherman didn't give up. He understood that building a career in acting would take time. This period of his life showed just how serious he was. Many people have dreams, but not everyone is willing to put in the effort to chase them. Sherman stayed focused, even when things were uncertain. He didn't let the routine of his job distract him from his bigger goal. Instead, he used it as a way to support his passion. These were his first real steps into the world of entertainment. He was learning, working, and preparing himself for opportunities that had not come yet. Even though he hadn't achieved success at this point, he was building the foundation for it. Step by step, Sherman was moving closer to his goal, even if it didn't look like it from the outside. And before long, a small opportunity would come along that would change everything for him. For Sherman Hemsley, the shift from training to real acting work began with a simple moment. One day, while going through a newspaper, he noticed a casting call for a local theater production. It wasn't a huge opportunity, and there were no guarantees, but for Sherman, it was exactly what he had been waiting for. He decided to take a chance and audition. Walking into that audition was a big step. He was still new to the professional side of acting, and there were many others competing for the same role. But Sherman relied on what he had been learning and gave it his best effort. When he found out that he had been selected, it marked his first real role in a local play. It may not have been a major production, but it meant everything to him. These early theater experiences became a turning point. They showed him that acting was not just a dream. It was something he could actually do. And soon, he would realize that to go even further, he needed to take an even bigger step. The move to New York. After building some experience in Philadelphia, Sherman Hemsley knew that if he truly wanted to succeed, he had to aim higher. Local theater had helped him grow, but bigger opportunities were waiting elsewhere. That's when he made a bold and calculated decision. He arranged to transfer his post office job to New York. This move allowed him to keep a steady income while stepping into a much larger and more competitive acting scene. New York was a completely different world. The level of talent was higher, and the competition was intense. Actors from all over the country came there to chase the same dream. For Sherman, this meant he had to work even harder to stand out. Nothing was guaranteed, and every opportunity had to be earned. His daily routine became demanding. During the day, he continued working at the post office, handling his responsibilities just like before. But once his shift ended, his real focus began. At night, he went to auditions, attended rehearsals, and performed in plays whenever he could. This schedule was exhausting, but Sherman stayed committed. He understood that this was the price of chasing something bigger. One of the most important steps he took during this time was joining the Negro Ensemble Company. This group played a major role in supporting black actors and giving them opportunities in theater, television, and film. Being part of this company opened doors that might not have been available otherwise. It also placed Sherman in an environment where he could learn from others who were just as serious about their craft. Through the company, Sherman connected with other talented actors who would later become well-known names. He worked alongside people like Samuel L. Jackson, Roxy Roker, and John Amos. These connections were important, not just for networking, but also for learning and growing. Being surrounded by driven individuals pushed him to improve and stay focused. During this time, Sherman continued developing his skills. Every audition, every rehearsal, and every performance added to his experience. He learned how the industry worked, what casting directors looked for, and how to handle rejection without giving up. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was a necessary one. New York gave Sherman something he couldn't have found anywhere else: exposure to the real demands of the entertainment industry. It tested his patience, his discipline, and his determination. And before long, all that hard work would lead him to the opportunity that would change everything. For Sherman Hemsley, all the hard work he had been putting in finally led to a major opportunity. While living in New York and continuing to perform, he landed a role in the Broadway play Purlie Victorious. This was a big step forward in his career. Broadway was a much larger stage, with bigger audiences and more attention from important people in the entertainment industry. One night, something happened that would change his life. In the audience was Norman Lear, a well-known television producer who had already created several successful shows. Lear had a strong eye for talent, and as he watched Sherman perform, he was impressed. He saw something unique in him, something that could work perfectly on television. After the show ended, Lear didn't just leave. He went backstage to meet Sherman in person. This moment was important. It wasn't just a compliment from someone in the audience. This was a direct connection with one of the most powerful people in television at the time. Lear told Sherman that he really liked his performance and that he believed he had great potential. During that conversation, Lear made him an offer. He told Sherman that if he ever decided to move to California, he should contact his office. He hinted that there could be a role waiting for him. At the time, Sherman was still focused on theater, and his life was in New York. So while he appreciated the offer, he didn't act on it right away. Years passed, and Sherman continued working on stage. But that conversation stayed in his mind. He knew that opportunities like that didn't come often. Eventually, he made a decision. If he wanted to grow even more and reach a wider audience, he needed to take that chance. So, he packed up and made the move to California, ready to see where that opportunity would lead. And when he made that call, he had no idea it would lead to the role that would make him a household name. When everything changed. When Sherman Hemsley finally made the move to California, he followed through on the promise he had been given years earlier. He reached out to Norman Lear, and that decision quickly turned into the biggest opportunity of his life. Lear invited him to audition for a role on the hit sitcom All in the Family. What Sherman didn't fully realize at first was that this wasn't just any role. Norman Lear had actually created the character with him in mind. After seeing his performance on Broadway, Lear believed Sherman was the perfect fit. The character was George Jefferson, a loud, confident, and outspoken man who would bring a new kind of energy to the show. When Sherman auditioned, he delivered exactly what Lear was looking for. He brought personality, timing, and presence to the role. It didn't take long for the decision to be made. He was officially cast as George Jefferson. This moment changed everything. Up until that point, the character of George Jefferson had only been mentioned on the show. Viewers knew about him through conversations, but they had never seen him on screen. When Sherman finally appeared, audiences immediately noticed him. His strong personality and sharp delivery made the character stand out right away. He also developed great on-screen chemistry with other cast members, especially Isabel Sanford, who played his wife Louise "Wheezy" Jefferson, and Mike Evans, who played their son Lionel. Their interactions felt natural and engaging, which made the show even more enjoyable to watch. Together, they created a family dynamic that connected with viewers. George Jefferson quickly became one of the most popular characters on television. Audiences loved his attitude, his humor, and his confidence. Because of this growing popularity, the producers decided to take things a step further. They created a spin-off show focused entirely on his character. That show was The Jeffersons, and it became a huge success. It ran for 11 seasons, which is a major achievement in television. Week after week, millions of people tuned in to watch Sherman bring George Jefferson to life. The show became one of the most recognized sitcoms of its time. With this success, Sherman Hemsley was no longer just an actor trying to make it. He had become a household name. People across the country knew who he was, and his character became a lasting part of television history. But as his fame grew, so did the attention on his personal life. Fame, rumors, and battles. As Sherman Hemsley became more famous, his life off-screen started getting more attention. With success came curiosity, and people began to talk about things he never openly discussed. One of the biggest topics was his sexuality. Over the years, there were many rumors that Sherman was gay. However, he never publicly confirmed this during his lifetime. He chose to keep his personal life private, even as the rumors continued to spread. To understand this, it's important to look at the time he was living in. Back then, being open about your sexuality, especially in Hollywood, was not easy. For Black actors, it was even more difficult. There was a real fear that coming out could damage or even end a career. Opportunities could disappear, and public opinion could quickly turn negative. Because of this, many actors chose to stay silent about their private lives, even if people around them already knew the truth. Sherman seemed to follow that path. He focused on his work and avoided discussing anything personal in interviews. He didn't make public statements about his relationships, and he rarely addressed the rumors directly. For him, privacy may have felt like the safest option. It allowed him to continue working without facing the risks that came with being open at that time. Some people in the industry later spoke about this. Garrett Morris, who knew Sherman, shared that his sexuality was not really a secret within Hollywood circles. According to Morris, many people already understood, but it just wasn't something that was talked about publicly. He also expressed that it was unfortunate that someone had to hide such a big part of their life, especially in a world that claimed to value freedom and self-expression. Along with these discussions came other, more controversial stories. There were claims that Sherman had a male partner who was very involved in his personal life. Some reports suggested that this person may have had control over his finances and decisions. It was even said that this partner may have influenced Sherman to move away from Los Angeles. Eventually, Sherman did move to El Paso, Texas. On the surface, it seemed like a simple decision. Many believed he just wanted a quieter life, away from the pressure of Hollywood. After years in the spotlight, that would make sense. But the rumors added another layer to the story. Some claimed that the move was connected to his relationship and a desire to keep things private. There were also stories about Sherman's personal relationships that gained attention over time. Some rumors claimed that he preferred younger male partners and that he sometimes paid for companionship. It's important to note that these were never confirmed facts. They remained stories shared by others, without clear evidence. Still, they became part of the public conversation around his life. These kinds of rumors often followed celebrities, especially those who kept their personal lives private. In Sherman's case, the lack of public information made people more curious, which led to more speculation. While some of these stories may have been exaggerated or untrue, they still shaped how people viewed him outside of his acting career. Through all of this, Sherman stayed mostly quiet. He didn't respond to every rumor or try to explain himself to the public. Instead, he continued to live his life the way he chose, keeping certain parts of it to himself. And while the rumors never fully stopped, an even bigger controversy would soon put him back in the spotlight for very different reasons. The Howard Stern controversy. One of the most talked about moments later in the life of Sherman Hemsley was his appearance on The Howard Stern Show, hosted by Howard Stern. The show was known for pushing limits and creating controversial moments, and Sherman's episode became one of those moments that people still talk about today. During this appearance, a skit was performed that involved blackface, which is when a person paints their face to imitate a black person. This practice has a very painful history and is widely considered offensive because it was once used to mock and stereotype black people in entertainment. In the skit, Howard Stern participated in this form of makeup, which immediately made the segment controversial. The skit was also connected to a past incident involving Whoopi Goldberg and Ted Danson. In that earlier situation, Ted Danson had appeared in blackface during a comedy performance with Whoopi Goldberg, which caused a major public reaction. That incident was already widely debated, and Stern's show attempted to reference or recreate similar material, which only added to the sensitivity of the situation. Sherman Hemsley was present during this segment and took part in the performance. At times, he played along with the skit, which confused many viewers even more. Some people were unsure whether he fully supported what was happening or if he was simply following the direction of the show. The mix of humor, satire, and racial content made the entire segment difficult for audiences to understand or accept. After the episode aired, there was strong public backlash. Many viewers and critics felt that the skit crossed a line. They questioned why such material was included and why Sherman, a respected actor known for his long career in television, was part of it. Some fans were disappointed and expressed concern that he had been put in an uncomfortable or inappropriate situation. The confusion also led to deeper questions. Some people wondered if Sherman had agreed to the appearance freely or if there had been pressure involved. There were discussions about whether financial need or professional obligation played a role in his decision to participate. At that stage of his career, he was no longer at the peak of his fame, and some believed that may have influenced the opportunities he accepted. However, there was never clear evidence that he was forced or coerced. Sherman himself did not publicly explain the situation in detail afterward, which left room for speculation. Because of this silence, people continued to interpret the event in different ways. The controversy became part of the larger conversation about how celebrities are treated on shock-based talk shows and how far entertainment should go for humor. In Sherman's case, it added another complicated chapter to an already complex public life. Death and legal chaos. As time went on, Sherman Hemsley remained active in the entertainment world even after the peak of his fame. He didn't disappear from television. Instead, he continued taking on roles and finding ways to stay connected to audiences. One of his most notable later roles was on the sitcom Amen, where he played Deacon Ernest Fry. The show ran for several seasons and gave fans a chance to see him in a different kind of role while still enjoying his strong screen presence. He also made guest appearances on several popular shows. Viewers saw him on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Family Matters, and Martin. These appearances kept him visible and reminded audiences of the impact he had made over the years. In addition to live-action roles, Sherman also explored voice acting. He lent his voice to the TV series Dinosaurs, showing that he was open to different kinds of work. Outside of television, he appeared in commercials for well-known brands like Gap, Denny's, and Old Navy. These projects helped him stay active in the industry and provided additional income. Even though he was no longer at the center of a major hit show, he continued working and doing what he loved. However, behind the scenes, things were not always stable. In 2005, Sherman faced financial difficulties. To deal with this, he made a major decision. He sold the rights to collect money from the reruns of his past shows. This included income from the Jeffersons, which had been a steady source of earnings. Selling those rights meant giving up long-term financial security. While it may have helped him in the short term, it affected his future income. Then came an unexpected and serious health issue. Despite being known as someone who cared about his health, Sherman was diagnosed with lung cancer. This came as a shock to many people, including those close to him. He had a reputation for eating well, exercising, and taking care of his body. He had even stopped smoking years earlier. Because of this, the diagnosis didn't seem to make sense to those who knew him. His condition worsened quickly. The cancer was aggressive, and within a short period, his health declined. Doctors suggested treatments like chemotherapy, but Sherman refused. He believed in natural healing and did not trust certain medical treatments. Even during this time, he reportedly didn't feel very sick, which made the situation even more unusual. In July 2012, Sherman Hemsley passed away at his home in El Paso, Texas. His death marked the end of a long and complex life, but the story didn't end there. What happened after his death became just as complicated. A legal battle began almost immediately. His business manager, Flora, claimed that Sherman had left everything to her in his will. However, a man named Richard Thornton came forward, saying he was Sherman's half-brother. To prove his claim, a DNA test was conducted, and it confirmed that they were related. This led to disputes over who had the right to handle Sherman's estate and decide his burial. There were disagreements about where he should be laid to rest and who should be in charge of his remains. Because of this conflict, his body was kept in a morgue for more than 3 months. Eventually, the case went to court. After reviewing the evidence, the court ruled that Sherman's will was valid. This meant that his business manager was given control, as he had stated before his death. Only then was he finally laid to rest. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories like this.